Today we're exploring a really fascinating figure, Louis IX of France. He reigned from 1226 right up to 1270.
Hmm.
And he's unique, isn't he? The only French king ever made a Saint Louis. Definitely the most famous of the direct Capetian rulers.
He really is. And when you look into Louis IX, you immediately hit this huge contradiction.
Oh, so?
Well, on one hand, he was seen across Europe as the model Christian king. Other rulers actually asked him to settle their arguments. Immense prestige.
Okay.
But on the other hand, he was quite the religious hardliner. He brought in these amazing legal reforms, fairness, administration. But alongside that, some pretty severe religious intolerance.
The monk king, they called him.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the monk king.
Yeah.
It sums up that tension perfectly.
So that's what we want to get into. How could one person be this legal innovator, the center of this intellectual boom in Paris,
Yeah.
and also lead these crusades
Yeah.
Well, that didn't go well, and enforce such harsh religious views?
It's the central question of his reign, really. And you have to remember, his time was arguably the peak for medieval France, economically, politically, culturally.
Right. And that reputation for fairness wasn't just local.
Oh, not at all. It was international. Kings from England, Aragon, they looked to him for mediation. That tells you just how highly regarded he was in the 13th century. He set the standard.
Okay, so where did this intense piety, this driving force, come from? It seems like it shaped both the good and the bad.
It absolutely did. And it starts early. He was crowned king at just 12 years old. His father, Louis VIII, died in 1226.
12. That's incredibly young to be king.
It is. And for those crucial early years until 1234, it was really his mother, Blanche of Castile, who held the reins as regent.
And she was a major influence, I guess.
Oh, completely. Absolute influence. She stayed his closest advisor right up until she died in 1252. She was the one who really instilled that deep, almost severe sense of Catholic duty in him.
There's that quote attributed to her, isn't there, about rather seeing him?
Yes, it's quite chilling, really. She apparently told him, "I love you, my dear son, as much as a mother can love her child, but I would rather see you dead at my feet than that you should ever commit a mortal sin."
Wow. Piety above life itself.
Yeah.
How did she manage politically during the Regency? A child king must have been a target.
She was incredibly shrewd, very effective. She faced down rebellions from powerful French nobles who thought they could take advantage of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, she managed to bring the Albigensian Crusade in the south to an end in 1229. That had been dragging on for 20 years. It really stabilized things and cemented royal power in the region. She protected his inheritance.
And Louis himself, he married Margaret of Provence in 1234. Was that a smooth transition?
Well, yes and no. They had a large family, but the sources suggest Blanche was actually quite jealous of Margaret.
Really? Jealous of her own son's wife.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, she tried pretty hard to keep Louis and Margaret apart within the palace, a very controlling figure, even towards the King of France.
Fascinating dynamic. Okay, let's shift gears to what many see as his most lasting impact. His work as a jurist, a legal reformer.
Yes, this is where his reign truly transformed France and centralized power, fundamentally changing the justice system.
He seemed to want to rationalize it, move away from older, more arbitrary methods.
Exactly. He targeted those ancient practices that relied more on superstition or force than evidence. Two changes stand out as truly revolutionary for the time.
Go on.
First, he essentially abolished trials by ordeal and trials by combat.
So no more sticking your hand in boiling water or having champions fight it out to decide guilt.
Precisely. He saw that as, well, not real justice. It was too reliant on chance or divine intervention that couldn't be controlled or understood rationally.
And what did he put in its place?
Evidence, procedure, and remarkably, he pushed the idea that someone should be presumed innocent until proven guilty.
The presumption of innocence. That feels incredibly modern.
It was. And it was also a political masterstroke. It positioned the royal courts, his courts, as the source of rational, reliable justice, rather than local feudal lords or the church courts.
So his piety connects here too. His God-given authority meant his justice must be the most righteous, the most rational.
You could certainly interpret it that way. He believed his kingship was divinely ordained, so his justice needed to reflect that divine order, which he saw as rational.
How did he make this system work across the whole kingdom? France was still quite fragmented then.
Well, he strengthened the system where people could appeal local judgments directly to the king's courts. That made the royal system the ultimate authority. But the big innovation was the enquêtes.
The enquête. Tell us about those.
These were essentially royal commissions, groups of officials sent out from Paris to travel the provinces,
Doing what?
investigating abuses by local royal officials, the bailies, the governors, hearing complaints from ordinary people, providing restitution if wrongs were found, basically enforcing royal standards and ethics.
Like inspectors general, almost.
Sort of, yes, but with real teeth. We have records, like one from 1261 concerning the Baillie of Vermandois, where they collected testimony from nearly 250 witnesses to investigate corruption claims.
That's thorough.
It sent a clear message, and it was backed by the Great Reform Ordinance of 1254, which laid out ethical guidelines.
But it wasn't just bureaucratic, was it? There's a famous image.
Ah, yes, the image of Louis IX sitting under the oak tree in the forest of Vincennes near Paris.
Personally hearing cases.
Personally hearing cases, dispensing justice directly to his subjects, rich or poor. Whether it happened exactly like that all the time, we don't know, but the story itself became incredibly powerful.
The king under the oak. It cements that image of the accessible, just ruler.
Absolutely. Brilliant political communication, really.
But as we touched on, that same intense piety that drove him towards justice also fueled something much darker. The monk king's zeal.
Yes, the flip side of the coin. His devotion was profound. You see it physically manifested in Paris with the Sainte-Chapelle.
A truly breathtaking building, even today.
Incredible. Built within the royal palace complex specifically to house the crown of thorns and other major relics he'd acquired.
He bought the crown of thorns.
He did, for an absolutely staggering sum, 135,000 livres, an enormous amount of money at the time. It essentially turned Paris into a new Jerusalem in the eyes of many, with Louis as its guardian.
But that dedication to Catholic orthodoxy meant he enforced it rigorously.
Extremely rigorously, and often violently. The laws against blasphemy, for example, were incredibly harsh.
What was the punishment?
Mutilation,
Yeah.
specifically of the tongue and lips. He wasn't just suggesting moral behavior, he was enforcing it with physical punishment.
And this zealotry extended to specific groups.
Tragically, yes. France's Jewish population suffered significantly under his reign. He ordered them to wear a distinctive badge, a yellow circle, as a mark of shame.
A precursor to later, even darker times.
Indeed. And perhaps most infamously, after the Disputation of Paris in 1242, a forced debate between Christian and Jewish scholars, he ordered the mass burning of Jewish texts. Around 12,000 copies of the Talmud and other vital manuscripts were destroyed in Paris. A deliberate act of cultural and religious destruction.
It's hard to reconcile that with the king under the oak tree, promoting rational law and innocence.
It is. He embodied that contradiction, the enlightened reformer and the zealous persecutor, often at the same time.
And this religious drive also took him far from France, didn't it? The Crusades.
Yes, his commitment to crusading was absolute. He led 2 major crusades. Both, ultimately, were failures. Apparently, it stemmed from a vow he made when he was gravely ill.
The Seventh Crusade first? Where did that go?
That was from 1248 to 1254. The target was Egypt, seen as the center of Muslim power in the region.
How did it start?
Initially, some success. They captured the port city of Damietta in 1249, but then the campaign stalled. Disease, logistical problems,
And the outcome?
disaster. At the Battle of Ferisker in 1250, Louis IX himself and much of his army were captured.
Captured. The King of France.
Yes, he had to be ransomed. The price was immense. 400,000 bezants.
How much was that?
It was close to the entire annual income of the French crown at the time. A staggering cost for a military defeat.
Did he come straight home after being released?
No, interestingly, he spent another 4 years in the Levant, in the Crusader states like the Kingdom of Jerusalem,
Doing what?
using his remaining resources and authority to refortify key Christian-held cities, Acre, Caesarea, Jaffa, trying to shore up their defenses before he finally sailed back to France in 1254. His personal dedication was just unwavering despite the setbacks.
Beyond the battlefield, though, his influence was perhaps greatest in diplomacy, wasn't it? You mentioned his standing among other rulers.
Absolutely. He was seen as the primus inter pares, the first among equals, and he used that status very effectively to stabilize France's borders through treaties.
Can you give an example?
Well, the Treaty of Corbeil in 1258, it settled long-running, complicated disputes with King James I of Aragon to the south. Basically, both kings agreed to give up old feudal claims on each other's territories. It clarified the border.
And with England.
Yes, the Treaty of Paris in 1259 was crucial. Henry III of England formally renounced his claims to territories his ancestors had held in France: Normandy, Anjou, Maine, Touraine, Poitou. Major concessions.
What did Henry get in return?
Louis formally recognized Henry as his vassal, but specifically for the territories Henry still held in the southwest Guyane and Gascony. It created a clearer, albeit still complex, relationship and brought relative peace to the western border for a time.
So he was a successful negotiator. And an arbitrator, too.
Very much so. His highest profile case as an arbitrator was probably the Mise of Amiens in 1264.
What was that about?
It was the conflict between Henry III of England and his own barons, who had forced reforms on him called the Provisions of Oxford, limiting his power. Henry asked Louis IX to rule on the validity of these provisions.
And what did Louis decide?
He sided firmly with Henry. He annulled the Provisions of Oxford, basically backing the principle of strong royal authority.
How did that go down in England?
Not well with the barons. They saw it as unacceptable foreign interference. In fact, Louis's ruling arguably made things worse and pushed England back into civil war, the Second Barons' War. So even his judgments weren't always accepted peacefully abroad.
Shows the limits of even his prestige. But back in Paris, his reign coincided with a real intellectual flowering.
No, absolutely. Paris was the place to be for scholars in the 13th century. The University of Paris was the leading center of learning in Europe.
And major figures were active there.
Hugely important figures. Thomas Aquinas was doing his most significant work there.
Aquinas, reconciling Aristotle with Christian thought.
Exactly. His Summa Theologica, a massive synthesis of Greek philosophy and Christian theology, was largely developed in Paris. It was revolutionary, introducing this rigorous, logical approach to faith and the natural world.
Was Louis involved in supporting this?
He strongly supported the Dominican and Franciscan orders, which were at the heart of this new learning. Aquinas was a Dominican. Another major figure, Albertus Magnus, also worked in Paris.
Albertus Magnus, more focused on natural science.
Yes, he had a much more experimental approach to studying the natural world, almost anticipating later scientific methods. So Louis didn't just build chapels for relics, he genuinely fostered this environment of intense intellectual activity.
A king presiding over legal reform, philosophical debate, and yet his end came back on crusade.
It did. In 1270, he launched the Eighth Crusade. This time, the target was Tunis in North Africa.
Why Tunis?
The strategic reasons are debated, possibly hoping to convert the ruler or pressure Egypt from the west. But the expedition was quickly struck by disease.
Dysentery, wasn't it?
Yes. Dysentery swept through the Crusader camp, and Louis IX himself succumbed. He died there, outside Tunis, on August 25th, 1270.
Dying on crusade. That must have cemented his pious image.
Absolutely. It was the perfect martyr's end in the eyes of many contemporaries. It's no real surprise that Pope Boniface VIII canonized him as St. Louis just 27 years later in 1297.
The ideal Christian monarch, officially recognized.
For his admirers, yes, it sealed that image.
So his legacy is immense. We see places named after him all over the world, St. Louis in Missouri, the Ile Saint Louis right in the heart of Paris. He truly embodies that deep paradox of his era, doesn't he?
He really does. The king committed to rational justice, sitting under his oak tree, yet also the zealous ruler ordering the burning of sacred texts and dying in pursuit of a religious war far from home. He centralized France, making the crown the ultimate source of both law and faith.
It leaves you wondering.
It does. Final thought for you to consider. Louis IX wrote a set of instructions, the enseignements, for his son and successor, Philip III.
What were they about?
Essentially, guidance on how to be a good Christian king, urging Philip to follow the example of Jesus Christ. So, given everything we've discussed, the justice, the intolerance, the crusades, the harsh punishments, what specific parts of his own complicated, sometimes brutal example did Louis IX, this most Christian king, truly want his son to emulate? It's a fascinating question about his self-perception and his ultimate vision for the French monarchy.